The ACC, just moments ago, I got the email, has announced their future conference football schedule model. There's still no divisions. People may forget this. They just announced a new schedule model last offseason, which was the first without divisions. And it went into the future again. Mm-hmm. So this one that they're announcing today is expected to be 7 years long.
Okay.
I have a feeling they will be reviewing it and changing it before the 7 years are up. But we'll pretend like it's gonna make it happen. Things you need to know. No divisions. Okay, this comes straight from the ACC. All 17 league teams, which is still weird to say. So this is the 14 ACC teams that we know, along with Cal, Stanford, and SMU, will play each other at least twice in 7 years. That's how they chose to word it. All 17 league teams will play each other at least twice in 7 years. I wonder if that means at least once every 4 years. Because obviously the question there would be, if you're on campus for 4 years, does that mean you are going to get at least one game against every team?
Yeah.
They also say 68 conference games each season with 16 annually protected matchups. The annual protected matchups we also have. Thank you very much to the information being passed to my desk right now. Mm-hmm. All right, we have the annual protected matchups.
Yes.
Boston College, Syracuse, don't care much.
Boston College, Pitt as well.
Don't care much.
Nope.
Syracuse, Pitt. So those three are just protected as heck up there.
Sure. That's fine. Let them do that.
North Carolina, Virginia is protected.
Okay.
North Carolina, Duke is protected. North Carolina, NC State is protected.
Okay.
NC State, Wake Forest is protected. NC State, Duke is protected. Duke, Wake Forest is protected.
Also, NC State, Carolina is protected, like you mentioned. Yep.
So, correct me if I'm wrong here. North Carolina State will play. North Carolina and North Carolina State will both play each other, Duke, and all right. So, I mean, they've protected the ones we want here in this.
Yeah, so State, again, their protections are Duke, Carolina, Wake Forest. UNC has Duke, NC State, and Virginia.
Yep.
Duke will take on protected every year, Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest. So, again, but Wake Forest and NC State will also play each other, like I said, 7 times during that stretch.
Let me say this, we're learning this as you're learning.
They're literally seeing this on the fly. And Wake Forest during that time will also play UNC 4 times as well.
So here's the way I see it. The protected matchups are the 4 teams from the state of North Carolina are pretty much protected to play each other, except UNC and Wake are not. But they'll still play each other a bunch.
Yeah, 4 times. So basically every other year, which is fine. But at least the triangle schools, as we see, we're looking at this right now. We're literally just got this information. The triangle schools will play each other every year based off what I'm seeing.
And that, I think, is fair.
Yes.
So here's the thing.
So yeah, we are reacting to this in real time.
So here's the biggest questions we had going in. Let's have this conversation with a little bit of format.
Okay.
The biggest questions going in were, how often are you going to go to California?
Yes.
How often are the California teams going to go to you? So it won't be an every year thing for the teams here in Carolina, right? So all the talk about travel, all the talk about media markets, all the talk about opening up your recruiting footprint, right? Because if you're Carolina and you're bringing you're bringing Stanford, you're not bringing Notre Dame, you wish. You're bringing Stanford into your conference. You're hoping to open up the state of California as a recruiting tool. The hard part is, now looking at this, you're not really going to be able to tell recruits, like, hey, if you come play with us once a year or once every other year, you'll definitely be able to play in front of your hometown in California. Right? If you look at NC State, in 2024, they will play at Cal.
Okay.
That's a cool one. In 2025, they will not play in California. In 2026, they will not. Oh, they'll play at Stanford. And then the next year, 2027, not. Let me make sure I'm keeping all of this in order. The next year, they will. The next year, they won't. The next year, they... Okay, so basically the way I'm looking at this, if you are not in a protected matchup with a California team, you'll go to California every other year.
Just about.
I think that's pretty good.
Or maybe once a season. That's about it.
I think that's kind of fun, right? Because they're going to have to come to you occasionally, so that'll probably be every other year. And you'll go to California every other year. If you're a fan, I love a every other year trip to Cali, right? Go take in the West Coast, see the Pacific Ocean, come on back and have the rest of it here on the East Coast. I don't hate that at all. I don't hate that a little bit. You're pointing to something. What do you have, Dennis?
I'd say just looking at this upcoming season, for example, NC State will have home games against Duke, Stanford, Syracuse, and Wake. They'll travel to Carolina, Georgia Tech, Clemson, and Cal. So, I mean, outside of the Cal trip, nothing really out of the ordinary in terms of travel for NC State. Carolina will have Georgia Tech, NC State, Pitt, Wake Forest at home. They'll travel to BC, Duke, Florida State, and Virginia. So they didn't even go out west this upcoming year. 2024, that is. Duke, home against FSU, UNC, Southern Methodist, Virginia Tech. They go to Georgia Tech, the U, NC State, and Wake Forest. So they're not even traveling out west, is Duke in 2024.
If you don't want to leave the state of Carolina next season, and obviously this season is going to play out the way the schedules have said they're going to play out this entire time. This is for the next year, which will be the first year with Stanford, Cal, and SMU within the ACC. We will, within the state of Carolina, North Carolina, obviously, we'll get all three of the new teams. SMU will be visiting Duke.
Yep.
Stanford will be visiting NC State. And Wake Forest will host Cal. So all three will come by. But, I mean, you know what? I'm just going to say it. Looking at this, I think a lot of the outrage over Stanford, Cal, and SMU joining, and from a football perspective, is way overblown. Mm-hmm. Now, it'll be interesting to see how they draw up the basketball schedules. If you are really into Olympic sports, if you're watching track and field or one of the soccer, softball, volleyball, baseball, those, I think the scheduling becomes a much more serious question. With football, it basically looks like every other year you're going to have a little bit of an unusual away game in conference. Other than that, not much has changed. Like if you look at Carolina's schedule this year, nothing has changed. Carolina, the UNC schedule for 2024, your conference home games are Georgia Tech, NC State, Pitt, and Wake Forest. Your away games are Boston College, Duke, Florida State, and Virginia. The first year of the new schedule for the University of North Carolina, you're facing all ACC teams that were in the ACC this year. That's actually kind of fascinating. Actually, let me go ahead and do a quick kind of rundown here. All right. You know what I think is funny, Dennis?
Hit me.
We know how the reports have been on the voting, right? Clemson, Florida State, and UNC were the three schools that continued to vote no on bringing Cal, Stanford, and SMU into the ACC.
Yep.
Now, part of the reason that I think they were kind of facetiously standing behind was the travel. Guess which three schools do not go to California at all?
This coming year?
This upcoming year in 2024.
Who?
Clemson, Florida State, and UNC. Florida State does go to SMU, but none of those three schools have away games at Stanford or Cal. I wonder if they didn't say the first year to do you a solid, you won't have to go all the way to the west to the Pacific time zone. To do you a solid, since you voted no, we'll send just about everyone else. Right, any group of three teams, one of them's going to go all the way out west. It's interesting. It is interesting.
So I just did like a quick tally. I may have, there's potential I missed one.
Yep.
So looking out West Coast trips again to California for the schools here in the Triangle. between 2024 and 2030. So during that 7-season stretch, Duke will travel out to California 3 times. UNC will travel out to California 3 times. NC State will travel out to California twice. I didn't include SMU in this because that's just Dallas-Fort Worth area. You go one time zone. That's really not that big of a travel. Yeah,
easy travel.
It's really not that big of a travel. But going out west to the Bay Area, 3 times for Duke, 3 times for Carolina, twice for NC State between 2024 and 2030. So over those 7 seasons.
That confirms it to me. There's a lot of overhype on the travel schedule for football.
That's it. Now, I haven't gone through who has the most West Coast travel or anything like that. When we have a commercial break, I'll comb through, which I know we need to take one here a little bit.
Yep.
But we'll comb through it here a little bit more and kind of look at some of the tendencies. But all the schools here in the Triangle will play each other every year over the next 7 seasons.
Which,
we know.
That, again, this could all change like it did last year.
Well, there's that.
But that, to me, is the most important part. And out of 7 years, you get 2 or 3 interesting trips to Cali. I'm fine with that. I am so unbelievably fine with that.